What is up, my loves? Welcome back to another episode of the Fully Alive podcast. My name is Stephanie Ellsperman. I am your host, and this is a place where you and I get to dive into all things living your soul's purpose, taking action towards your deepest desires, the mindset of high performers, spirituality, and impact-driven business. We do it all here with the heart and the mission of creating a life that makes you feel fully alive from the inside out. I'm so beyond excited to have you in this space for this episode where we are getting into the ins and outs of intuition and deepening your discernment on what your intuition is and feels like versus what your past patterns that might just want to keep you comfortable and therefore sabotage your success feel like. Because if you can hone in on this discernment, you're going to completely, radically shift your decision making so that you don't have to continue chasing your tail and thinking about what are the pros and the cons of this decision in order to make it in front of you. You can actually use this power to make decisions in 30 seconds or less that put you ahead in life. So if you want to be the type of person where you are constantly growing and evolving, you're magnetizing opportunities left and right, opportunities for success, for wealth, abundance, love, and overall just living with that sensation of being on purpose in your life, you've got to know the difference between what is a pattern that's going to keep you stuck, replaying the same things over and over, versus what is your intuition that's actually going to put you ahead. There are countless leaders who cite the importance of using their intuition in decision making. People like Steve Jobs, Richard Branson, Sarah Blakely, Oprah, Tim Ferriss, Billie Eilish. I could list so many different examples of people who are honing in on this power of intuition to actually put them ahead within their industry and their life. And also, I think the greatest part of our intuition, really knowing what it is that we get that sensation of knowing that we're acting according to our truth and to that deepest place of intention, rather than just doing something unconscious because it's what we've done before and then somehow waking up and wondering why we have the same results, versus really fully living to your highest potential and making those decisions that just rapidly shift your life so that you can continue feeling that sensation of, God, like I'm living for a purpose. I'm doing this. It's not always seamless, yet it's intentional and it's powerful. So in this episode, we're going to get into what your intuition actually is and the 5 signs to differentiate your intuition versus your past patterns that are keeping you comfortable and not necessarily going to help your growth. So without further ado, let's head into the podcast episode. The easiest, simplest way to bring purpose into your daily life is through your decisions. So what I typically teach in Purpose Mastery is that there are 3 levels of your purpose. The first is that there is the macro level of your purpose, which is, what are we doing here as human beings? What is our purpose in this world? What's going on? Then we have our personal level of purpose. So this is your own unique mission that you're here to fulfill in this lifetime, that's based on your values, your vision, your passion, your genius, your skill set, all of that good stuff that comes together to form what you are really here to do in this world. So some people might see this as their career, their job, a side business, a side hobby, et cetera, et cetera. It's that thing that gives us that sensation of purpose on a personal level. And then we have our daily purpose. And this to me is truly the most important level of purpose, because if you can hone in on this, you'll wake up every single day knowing that you're living your life for a reason, rather than just going through the motions of life. And that daily level of purpose is living with intention and making decisions with purpose that are in alignment with what you truly want for yourself, rather than what society has told you that you should do, rather than according to all of your past patterns that have kept you already stuck within your life, rather than what you feel like is right or wrong or the pros and cons list in your mind. It's making those decisions that actually move the needle towards who you desire to be. The reason why this podcast is called the Fully Alive podcast, and why the entire movement of this brand is the Fully Alive movement, is because I noticed that there is no greater place where I feel more alive than when I am growing every single day and I'm making those decisions that I know are actually changing the course of my life because they're different than what I've done in the past. They're not just me just going through the motions and, yep, I've always done this, so I do this in this way. It's making those decisions that are scary and exciting, that are a part of my intuitive gut, yes, that I know are moving me forward in my life just for the sensation of what it feels like to grow. To me, that's the greatest part of my own purpose, is just to grow constantly and to then get to serve from that place of continually evolving. And so if you're somebody who wants to bring purpose into your life right now, this is the simplest place to start. Every single day, where are you making your decisions from? Your growth lies in your decision making. And the way that we can really start to turbocharge this is through making decisions with your intuition. Now, to give you a quick little crash course, what is your intuition? It is that gut feeling deep in your heart and in your belly that is forward thinking. It's connected with that deeper part of yourself, your soul, if you will, the higher version of you, your highest self that has already accomplished all the things that you want to accomplish, that has already evolved in the way that you want to evolve, and that can see beyond the rational mind and almost give what I call the shortcut. Not the shortcut because it's always the easier way, but the shortcut because instead of going from point A to B to C to D to E to F, like your rational mind is going to take you, your intuition gives you a straight shot from point A to point F. Somehow, if you are willing to follow it into the unknown. That's the key trade-off, is you get to trade what is known and comfortable and takes longer and is kind of honestly harder in the long run to follow your rational mind versus to fully and radically live in a way where it brings miracles into your life that you could have never possibly imagined, yet it's unknown because you've never done it before. Where most of us high performers go wrong because we have these really, really beautiful, incredibly strong and powerful minds is that we will stay making decisions with our minds. Now, what happens is when you're only making decisions with your mind and what is logically true, what the pros and cons are, what your mind says is right and wrong, we're bound to get the same results over and over. Now, why is that? It's because in your mind, in your brain, that is where all of your past patterns live. All of your fears, your past beliefs, the things that you think you can and cannot do, the past experiences that you had in childhood, all of that lives within your mind. And they're congruent with who you are and who you've been in the past. And so if we only make decisions with our mind and we just rely on this overactive, overthinking mind to rationally decide everything in our life, all we're doing is making decisions that are congruent with who you are right now and who you've been in the past. But if you're somebody who gets fulfillment from that sensation of continually growing, you want to continually see your life 180 and achieve this and that and that and that and feel that like fully alive feeling because you're continually growing, well, then we can't be making decisions according to just our mind. There is always a time and place for our mind because it's a beautiful, incredible thing. And we never want to think that it's wrong or bad. It has its time and place. But when it comes to decision making, if you're the type of person who wants to completely up level, well, then we have to understand how to make decisions from a different place. And that is the intuitive place. So when it comes to your intuition, we've got two levels of intuition. I'm sure there's many, many more, but we're going to start with these first two levels. The first level of understanding your intuition is what's very common in understanding your intuition, right? It is understanding, does this feel expansive in my body or does this contract me? So when you're thinking about the thing that you are about to make a decision on, does it expand you and make you somewhat excited, even if it's terrifying? Or does it contract you and make you feel like, ugh, like I don't want to do that? And usually this is found in the body. And so typically, if we had all the time in the world, I would take you through an entire somatic practice to really be able to understand this. That's actually something that we do in Purpose Mastery, where we really get into the body and understand what this feels like. Then over time, after you get really good at that, at following these gut pulls and following what feels like a no, then you start to reach the second level of understanding your intuition. And this is where things get very interesting. So we have to go through a period of time where we're just basing our decisions on, does it expand you or does it contract you? Does it feel exciting and scary? Or does it feel like, oh my God, I don't really want to do that? Then we reach a second level of understanding your intuition. So if you've been on this growth path for a while, you've gotten really good at like, what's my yes, what's my no, all of that good stuff. Then we start to recognize that there's actually more nuance to your intuition than you realize. Congratulations, you have graduated to the second level. And this is where we have to start understanding the difference between our intuition and our past patterns. So I personally started noticing this when Nolan and I, a couple of years ago, we were getting back together. So to give you all some context, Nolan, my boyfriend, and I, we've been together for about 5 years now. We've known each other for 5 years, and we were together for about 2 and some change years. And then we broke up for a period of time. We broke up for a full year where we gave ourselves time and space to really understand ourselves, with no foresight into getting back together. And when we were starting to make this decision to come back together and to then also move to Connecticut, which is a whole other story. You guys can tune into past podcast episodes about all of that and how we got here. But when we made this decision to move out to Connecticut, I don't think I've shared this with on the podcast. Maybe I've shared it in a past episode, but everything inside of me, we're like 2 weeks out to moving. Everything inside of me is like, holy shit, we're not supposed to do this. I had so many rational reasons in my mind that felt so freaking real. I was like, I need to experience this, and I'm supposed to go and do that. And like, what if this happens? That I was convinced, and it gave me so much anxiety. I was convinced that I wasn't supposed to do it because what if something bad was going to happen again? And I thought that this was my intuition telling me, hey, don't do this again. There's actually something else that you're supposed to be doing. But I learned in that moment, and I'm so grateful that I had people around me to really ground me and remind me what was true, what was really, really true for myself, because my own mind wasn't doing it for me. But I started to recognize on the back end of that entire experience that, holy shoot, your intuition is way more nuanced than just what feels like this gut pull, like you're supposed to be doing this, versus what doesn't. Because in actuality, our past patterns also have a way of being able to get in there and kind of hijacking the system a little bit, right? So in my personal experience, like my past pattern of being this independent woman and somebody who on some level didn't feel as safe in commitment as she did with herself. I knew that when I was with myself and I was just me and me, I had me. I had my own back. I didn't have anything to worry about because I had me, and I was used to that. And that was comfortable for me. But when it came to merging lives with somebody and fully giving myself over to a greater power, which is love, whoo, now that was uncomfortable. But I didn't realize that in the moment. I was just like, no, I'm feeling this gut pull to run away right now. And I had people in my life to ground me and again, remind me it was true. It's like, you have this incredible man who's right in front of you, who wants to give you everything in this world. And you guys have so much love together. And I was like, yeah, you're damn right we do. Why was it happening? And I decided to dig my heels in that moment and say, I know that everything in my mind is telling me something else, but I've done that before. I have done that experience before where I turn back and I run away. I've done the experience before of being the independent woman. I've done the experience of hopping from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next. What I haven't done is allow myself the grace to grow with someone, to see someone in all of their glory and all of their love and also all of their imperfection and say, I'm here because I know what we can create together. And yes, I'm not perfect and he's not perfect, but we're here. And I'm more willing now in this stage to grow with somebody than to try and grow apart and then meet the perfect person, because I had done that before and it worked. But it wasn't what was going to get me to the next level of my full truth and my full expression and my purpose in this world. I needed to learn something new. And so I decided to dig my heels in, move myself out to Connecticut. And now in hindsight, this is something that I call on all of the freaking time. I see it in business. I see it in partnership, in relationship with my clients, is that you will reach another level of your intuition at some point where you have to hone in on the power of discernment between what is truly your gut feeling versus what is a past pattern that's coming in and telling you that you should do something. And it feels so overpowering and it feels so loud and it feels so real that that's what you're supposed to do. And why this happens, if we kind of want to go into the mechanics of it, is something called the upper limit. So when you are expanding at such a fast and rapid rate within your life, you are bound to hit what is called the upper limit. It is just part of ourselves as human beings. because we all have subconscious minds. And this is a term that is coined by an incredible leader and speaker, Gay Hendricks. And he talks about the upper limit as your inner thermostat. Your inner thermostat is that part of you that you will always come back to. You will always come back to, right? It's that set point for how much love you allow yourself to experience, how much success you allow yourself to experience, how much peace you allow yourself to experience. And it's based on all of your past patterns, right? So when you get to that point where you're just experiencing so much freaking love or so much growth, you start to hit that upper limit because, oh my gosh, now we're really about to break through and cross that threshold into this new version of yourself. And so everything within you is like, oh my God, the unknown is unsafe. Let's bring ourselves back down. And so we enact these different protective mechanisms to bring ourselves back down to that thermostat point. Now, your upper limit can consciously come up through fear. So you might reach a point of, let's say you reach a point of success, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, what if it all goes away? And what if X, Y, and Z starts to happen? What if these people think that? And what if like all of these fears start to feel so all consuming? That can be a sign of hitting your upper limit. Like, oh, interesting. This is an edge for me. And therefore, everything within me is wanting to bring me back down to that thermostat point. Or it can also come up through a very real experience that doesn't consciously feel like fear. So this is where also self-sabotage can come in very, very, very sneaky ways, where you might have, I honestly notice this all the time. My body would get sick in the past when I was going into an experience that was going to stretch me to become a new version of myself, and I didn't want to deal with it. And so my body would get sick to take me out in that experience versus actually ponying up and handling it. Or it might come up through I see this all the time with like consistency, for example, like showing up consistently. And I see this where it's like, you might have a very real excuse of why you can't show up and you can't do the thing because X, Y, and Z happened and all of these constraints on your time. It's like, okay, yeah, that's true. It's real, but also, is it possible that you're hitting your upper limit right now, right? It's like that breaking point where everything within you just wants to like sabotage it. And it might sabotage it through trying to be overly perfect. It might sabotage it through rebellion and saying, screw all this, I want to burn it to the ground and hop over to another idea. There's all these different versions of our own self-sabotage. However, when we become conscious of that upper limit, it becomes a choice point. When we're unconscious of the upper limit, it becomes self-sabotage, where we hit the upper limit. Oh my God, something's happening. Can't sustain the level of success, joy, love, peace that you've been feeling, brings you back down to where you've been. And you wonder why you keep repeating the same pattern over and over and over, is because you're hitting that upper limit. Not that there's anything wrong with you. It's just, oh wait, we haven't become conscious yet that is a choice point. That it's not always true that all of these fears are real, or that there's so many constraints on your time that you can't show up, or that your body is taking you out. Like, what if it were just you reaching the next level of your growth? And the way to blast through that is starting to discern what is actually my intuitive gut pull of what I'm meant to do next versus what is my past pattern that's hitting this upper limit and therefore trying to keep me back and take me back to my internal set point, because you will only grow as far as you believe yourself to be able to grow. And the way to blast through that is to blast beyond the rational mind and into the intuition. And so what I have found over time is that it is very helpful to understand what are the different signs to distinguish between your intuition and your past patterns, the things that are linked in with things that have happened in the past, your subconscious mind, etc., etc. So sign number one is that your past pattern will ask you to go backwards. It will ask you to go back to what has worked before in the past, what is somewhat familiar, even if it's posing as something new. So I say that because in the example that I shared with you around when Nolan and I were getting back together, I felt like I was supposed to have this like whole new experience where I was supposed to go travel and do all these other things. It's like, yeah, that's a new experience, right? Being with somebody, it's the same old, I've done this before. I'm supposed to go live this new experience. But in actuality, when I look at it even deeper, it's like, nah, girl, like you were trying to do the same old thing that you've always done, which is be independent and work on yourself and then try and find the perfect person who is all of these things. I've done that before. Asking me to go backwards is something that is familiar in the past. But your intuition, on the other hand, will ask you to grow and move forward. Something I hadn't done was dig my heels in and grow when everything in me wanted to run. I hadn't done that. And it's that sensation. I always look for the sensation of like, oh, this is new. Like, okay, this is new. And I use that as a marker in business all of the freaking time. Where if there's ever a part, I see this with clients all the time, where you'll want to go back to an old way that you had done things before. Maybe it's an old way of launching or an old way of speaking about things, an old job that you had before, and just feels very familiar. Now, sometimes it's beneficial to be in the familiar, but if we're really on the path of growth and wanting to understand what that intuitive pull is, it's a sensation of like, oh, this is a combination that I literally could have never created on my own. This is a new sensation. I have never felt this way before. And that's where it can become a little bit uncomfortable, because we're basically like covering our eyes and putting one hand out in front of us and saying, well, where am I right now? And that's the beauty, because that's when you actually create something new and you reinvent yourself and your life shifts in a way that you could have never planned. Okay. Side number 2 is that your past pattern will act from a place of fear deep down, and your intuition is from a place of love or deep knowing. So that past pattern is a protective mechanism. It can feel on some level very urgent, like it has to be done right now. So in that example of when Nolan and I got back together, like there's all of me that was terrified of what if our hearts broke again? Like what if we went through something that would hurt just as much as when we broke up. Like, I don't want to go through that again. I don't want to move my life out to Connecticut and then something happens and we both get hurt. Like, what? That would be so scary. So deep down, there was part of my inner child that was just terrified of what was going to happen. So it was so much easier to act according to that past pattern than it was to truly dig into this place of love, which was so much love that I have for him, so much love and a deep knowing that this is where I'm meant to be. And if I put one foot in front of the next, like I am meant to be out in Connecticut with him building our life, and we'll see what happens next, right? Like that was a place of intuition. When we look at something like taking action within your life, that place of fear is, well, what if it doesn't work? What if I do this and people think X, Y, and Z? So what it might pose as is like you get bored with an idea that you've been doing for a while. You get bored and you're like, oh, maybe this one just isn't it. When actuality, if you were to dig just a little bit deeper, you'd probably recognize that you're just terrified that it's not going to work. You've put so much time and effort and you're getting to that tipping point of where you could really break through and dig your heels in, create something for the long term of your life, but you're terrified that it's not going to work. You're like, oh, now it's getting real. Now it's getting real. Now my fears are coming up to the surface. Now this thing, that's why I say business is always my most spiritual practice. Anytime you dedicate yourself to something so much greater than you, it is going to bring up every single one of your own fears, every single one of the places where you need to grow in order to be the leader who can lead that thing, that mission for your life. And so sometimes it gets a little tricky when those things start to come up to the surface. And so it's like, just be so much easier to hop to the next idea. Well, have you done that before? If you've done that before, then now's the time to dig in and just see what happens when you have staying power, because your intuition is from that place of love and deep knowing that you felt probably in the beginning of having this one specific idea that you knew that you wanted to take action on. Okay. Side number 3 is that your past pattern will feel like overthinking. It will feel somewhat disconnected from the body and very heady within the mind. So it's going to be giving you all of these different reasons of why it's the thing that you're supposed to do, and it's not fully grounded. Versus our intuition is connected to our hearts and to our bodies. And I really want to emphasize that it's connected to your heart, your freaking heart, this beautiful heart. Because sometimes what can happen, especially as high performers, we have these beautiful, intense minds where we get this sensation of like, oh my God, I'm supposed to go do this one thing. and it will be in the mind, and the mind will become so overpowering and so loud that it will feel like this pit in our stomach, and you're like, oh, well, that's my gut, that's what I'm supposed to do. It's like, is it actually connected, or is it just kind of your head coming in and making you feel like that feeling in your stomach because you're, oh my god, thinking about it so much, right? Your intuition comes like there is a feeling of openness that happens with it. Like when you talk about the thing, you light up and there's a smile, even if it's terrifying. There's a lightness and an energy to it that just cannot be denied because it comes from your heart. Your heart is a place of your magnetism. If you actually look at the human body's magnetic field, it comes from your heart all the way up and over your head, all the way around your body and back up through your heart. It is the center of your magnetic field. So if you want to be magnetic, your decisions have to come from your heart space, your heart connected with your gut, not your mind connected with your gut. Sign number 4 is that your past pattern will feel on some level a little bit panicked, a little urgent, a little loud. Oh my God, we've got to do this thing or else something bad is going to happen. It is charged with emotion. Yet your intuition is subtle. It's that feeling of, yeah, that's it. That's it. There's not necessarily the sense of urgency, but this deep knowing that this will unfold over time. It's exciting, even if it's somewhat scary. Sign number 5 is that your past pattern, there will be an ease because it's familiar, but a difficulty because it feels like forcing it. Versus with your intuition, there will be an ease and a swiftness to it because there is a greater force that is pulling you towards that. But it will be difficult because it's asking you to face certain fears and insecurities and step into a new version of yourself. So when we're acting according to what we've done before, on some level, it feels like the easier option to do because it's like, oh, we've done that before. That's comfortable in my body because I don't have to face these fears. It might feel a little bit difficult because you're kind of forcing different elements for that to happen. Versus when we're truly in alignment with our core and our soul and what it's asking for us to do, there is an energy. I feel it like there's like almost a wind at your back that is just bringing you forward. But it might feel like the most challenging thing. Like I have an identity crisis sometimes when I'm asked to do something in a new way because I'm asked to act according to a new version of myself rather than who I've been being in my entire life. And that's scary. And it's hard sometimes because we don't want to do that. But what I will say on the other side is that my greatest sense of purpose every single day comes from that sensation of I'm proud of the way that I lived because I did the thing, not necessarily that was always the easiest, but I did the thing that I knew was true within my heart. And sometimes I got it wrong. And sometimes, I acted according to a past pattern instead of what I knew was to be true because I didn't fully see it in that moment. But now I know. And I can course correct and I can do something new moving forward. That is a place that I truly live my life from. That is the greatest sense of purpose in my own personal eyes, is that daily sense of purpose. I act with purpose. I act in accordance with that higher part of myself, not with what I've done before, because I know that I'm here to grow and evolve. And as I grow and evolve, I get to serve even more every single day. And the last thing that I'll leave you with is when in doubt, turn towards love. Always turn towards love. Where is the greatest sensation of love right now? Even when it's tricky, even when it's hard, even when it's honestly the most exciting thing to do, turn towards the love, because that love, again, your heart is the center of your magnetic field. If you want to magnetize things in your life, it comes from living from this beautiful place in your heart rather than your mind. So go out, get some fresh air, let yourself drop in. I love to be with the trees. That allows me to drop in with my heart. If you guys have been here before on the podcast, you know that one of my pastimes is just going and looking at the trees and crying, because we all love to do that on any given day. Listen to some music, go be with people who bring you back to your heart. And it's truly the greatest place to live from. So I hope that something has landed with you today. I love you all so freaking much. I am so grateful that you've been here, that we've gotten to spend this time today, and that you've also dedicated yourself and your life to this place of purpose. I just think about the world and what it could be if we were all truly living with intention and with this sensation of purpose, rather than just replaying what somebody else who didn't actually know told us what we should do when we were 5 years old. And then we just keep replaying that for the rest of our lives. And we never fully step into our true power that we have here, honestly, to heal and to heal one another and to be in our full genius. Brings tears to my eyes. Tears to my eyes. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being you. I cannot wait to see you on the next episode. Mwah! I will see you there. Oh, also, if you have not subscribed to this podcast, what the heck are you doing? If you're listening without subscribing, take a hot second. Go ahead, subscribe to the podcast. It helps us so much to be able to let this message get out to more people and to get really incredible guests on the podcast in 2024, because that's something that we're doing now. You guys requested it. We're bringing them on to talk all things purpose, mindset, spirituality, business, all of that good stuff. It'll be here. It'll be good. Go ahead, subscribe. If you think of someone in your mind who you think this might resonate with, go ahead, share it with them. Spread the love, baby. And if you're feeling extra generous today, extra generous from your heart, you can go ahead and give us a 5-star review and rating on Spotify, Apple, wherever you listen to this. It is truly one of the greatest gifts that you can give any person who podcasts you listen to. The greatest way of giving back. I love you all so much. Mwah! See you on the next episode.